It's 2026, and this year has a projected 3.5 million cybersecurity jobs gap globally. Now is the time to get in. And if you are looking to either get into cybersecurity or grow your career in cybersecurity, you're going to want to watch this video. Hi, my name is Rich and welcome to the Rich Tech Guy channel. And as I mentioned in the intro, we are facing a global cybersecurity skills gap of 3.5 million jobs. And it's only going to get bigger. So if you are looking to get a career in cybersecurity or grow your career in cybersecurity, now is the absolute time to get these skills and really level yourself up. So you're going to want to stick around for this video because I am going to go over 10 skills or specializations that you absolutely need to be paying attention to as we go into 2026. And by the way, the last skill is something that you may not really think about, but it's definitely an important one. So you're going to want to stick around for this. But before I get into it, if you like this content, go ahead and hit that like button down there. And if you're not subscribed to this channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It's down there by the like button. And that way you can get more content like this and help me to grow this channel. So without any further ado, let's get into the skills you're going to need going forward into 2026. Skill number 1, AI and machine learning security. So this right here is a brand new Cisco AI pod. It hasn't even been turned on yet. What you can see here, as we look a little bit closer, is we've got all of these Nexus switches up here. These are Nexus 9000 series, and they are capable of up to 400 gigabits per second of bandwidth. Down here, we've got fabric interconnects, and these are what manage the Cisco UCS chassis. And if we go all the way down to the bottom of the rack, here is a Cisco UCSX series chassis, which is loaded with 2 compute nodes and 2 GPU nodes. And it's actually quite capable of scaling out to 2 more compute and 2 more GPU nodes, but we're keeping this one a little bit on the smaller side in terms of power. Businesses all over the world are installing systems similar to this and even at much larger scales to help increase their productivity and grow their revenues with their own AI projects. But from a cybersecurity standpoint, when I look at this, I see a target. So this facility that I'm in right here, this is actually a cyber range, and its sole purpose is to increase cybersecurity. And the way we do that is by quite literally launching cyber attacks against what's in here. So the 2 purposes that we brought this in here for is, 1, this organization does have some AI projects that are going to be deployed onto it, but 2, we are going to attack it safely. When it comes to AI and cybersecurity, there are really 3 areas of focus. 1, how are the threat actors out there using AI to elevate their attacks? 2, how can we use AI to help defend against the attacks out there? And 3, AI itself is a target. How do we protect AI? This is why AI and machine learning is going to be so vital going forward. First of all, if you don't understand how the threat actors are using AI to launch new and more sophisticated attacks, you are not going to be prepared to defend against them. For example, if you were to go to any of the main AI chat systems out there, ChatGPT, Google Genesis, Grok, Microsoft Copilot, and you asked it, hey, here's a CVE, can you write some code that will help me to use that CVE and create an exploit? Those AI systems are going to say, no, I'm not going to do it. In fact, they might even shut you out of the conversation at that point, because they might say, nope, this is a violation of terms of service. I'm not going to talk to you anymore, or maybe shut you out for a period of time. Okay, so how do you get around that? Well, the bad guys, what they're doing is they're creating local LLMs on their own systems, and they're utilizing that to get around the guardrails that are in place on the mainline AI chat systems. And what they're then able to do is they can feed it that CVE, and they can say, write me some code that will exploit this particular CVE. So what this is resulting in is, as soon as CVEs are published, the bad guys out there are already developing exploits against them. And they are basically using these AI systems to elevate themselves to the level of being APTs, or advanced persistent threats. So what can be done from an AI and machine learning standpoint to help with protecting and defending? So AI machine learning is really good at combing through massive data sets and looking for patterns. And that is something that it's just tedious activity, and if humans do it, they might miss those patterns because it could be a really spaced out set of data. But we could use that then to identify and flag potential vulnerabilities. Now, at this point, I would not be comfortable with just simply letting AI take over. Q 2001, Space Odyssey, HAL 9000, things just go bad. So instead, we can really use it to just sort of help us out and flag a lot of these things. So for example, we could use AI to monitor a network and look for anomalies in the traffic that pops up. Or it could be used to identify certain behavior that malware might do and flag that as potentially malicious without having to wait for a malware-based signature from a threat researcher. And another thing it could be utilized to do is to help with identifying certain traffic on the network and looking at what could be potentially malicious traffic. Even if that's encrypted, you could use it based off of the patterns and activity of the traffic. You don't actually have to look at the packets themselves. And so these are things that AI could be used to really help with protecting and defending our infrastructure. Lastly, we need to be conscientious of things like AI prompt injection, data extraction, AI data poisoning, which then can actually lead to something called AI mad cow disease. And so this system that I showed you earlier that's in the rack behind me, it is going to become a target, and any system out there like that businesses are using. So we need to make sure we've got proper security protocols in place to allow it to do what it needs to do, but also protect it against malicious activity. And as I've been talking about AI, let's move on to the next skill that you're going to need to have in 2026. Skill number 2, identity and access management with deepfake defenses, because of course AI. So identity is everything when it comes to cybersecurity, and if threat actors are able to gain access to and compromise a trusted user's identity, well, they're in, and now you're dealing with a cybersecurity incident. But also keep in mind that here in 2026, identity actually is not just people anymore. It could also be, as we look at IoT, devices can have identity. And so what is the identity and the privilege level of a particular device? Is there a particular firmware or software exploit that, if used, could elevate the privileges of that device? And so thereby an attacker getting in, gaining control of that device, using an exploit, has greater control or access into your environment. But getting back to people and people identity, so in 2024, because we're still waiting for 2025 numbers, but in 2024, Cisco Talos reported that 60% of the cybersecurity incidences they responded to utilized identity as part of the breach. And really, identity means absolutely nothing in terms of protecting it if you've got your own users, the employees in your organization, who just simply open the door for the bad guys when they click on that phishing email and enter their credentials. So really, and when we're looking at identity access and management, that's where we really need to also be able to enforce Zero Trust Network Architecture, or ZTNA. But as I mentioned, AI, it's bringing another layer to that, and that would of course be deepfakes. So to give an example of that, in 2024, the cybersecurity training company KnowBe4 unknowingly hired a North Korean hacker as a software developer for a position that they had. And this North Korean hacker actually managed to deepfake his way through 4 Zoom interviews and appeared to look legitimate, was hired on, and you might be thinking, well, okay, well, the company laptop would have been shipped to North Korea. That's a red flag, but no. The laptop was actually shipped to what is called a laptop farm inside the United States, where the North Korean attacker was then able to have access remotely into that laptop. And because that laptop was a company laptop, it had trusted privileges, and so they started using it. Now, KnowBe4's policies, they actually have it a little bit more locked down for new hires, according to the publication that they wrote about this. And so they very quickly identified that this particular user was using his company laptop in a manner atypical of a new software developer hire. And so their own zero trust systems and their ZTNA actually flagged the anomalous activity. And a credit to them, within 25 minutes of that being flagged, they actually shut down the attacker and were able to deal with the situation. But also, getting back to these laptop farms here, in 2025, a woman in Arizona was convicted of running one of these laptop farms. And this was actually a fairly large operation, and she was doing this on behalf of North Korean attackers, where they were basically paying her to set up these laptops so they could remotely access them. And as part of the bust of this woman and the subsequent trial and conviction, it was revealed that this particular laptop farm and the attackers utilizing it actually had compromised about 309 U.S. companies using the identities, actually 68 stolen identities in order to compromise these companies. So these two stories combined just really hit the nail on the head in regards to deepfake defenses. So, and identity itself. Now, let's move away from doing something reactive and let's talk about the next thing in a more proactive manner, which is number 3, preemptive threat intelligence. So what you see going on this screen behind me is a live feed of cyber attacks. Now, next time you're in your data center or you're in your MDF room and you're seeing lights blinking on all the devices in there, which one of those blinks are the bad ones? Can you tell? That's why we really need to have an understanding of what is coming at us and how it is coming at us. In cybersecurity, if you're in a reactive mode, you're doomed. And it's really only a matter of time before you're breached. And that is why taking on a more proactive approach is so necessary. Now, you may only see what's going on your network or maybe what is attacking your gateway, but that is where you can partner up or utilize the services of various threat intelligence groups out there like Threat Connect or Cisco Talos to help you to understand the bigger picture, what's going on, maybe what you might be vulnerable towards, and then adapt to that situation. So, and honestly, even if you're not purchasing the services of one of these threat intelligence groups, read the information they put out publicly. A lot of these groups, they do put out blogs, they make public statements about what they see out there. Read about those, stay up to date with those, just so that way you can understand what is going on out there. And maybe they might put something out there that does resonate with what you're doing in your organization. Another great proactive approach that you can do is to do things like a pen testing. And that's where you hire effectively some hackers out there. Now, these are guys that are actually paid to go after networks legitimately. They are not malicious in their attacks, but they will launch attacks against you, and then they will generate a report on what they see. And if they happen to get in, then they'll have a report on exactly how they got in and what vulnerabilities they saw once they were in. So this is another great way of helping you to understand where you might have some challenges in your cybersecurity. And it's a lot better that it be discovered in that manner than if an actual malicious actor out there manages to breach you. So all of this too, it will lead into the next topic on this list, which is skill number 4. Regulatory compliance and risk management. So coming from the perspective of the United States, where I'm at, 2026 is going to be a massive year in terms of regulatory compliance. Now, one of the biggest things out there is if your company or your organization has contracts with the U.S. federal government, Department of Defense, Department of War, whatever it's being called, there is a compliance out there, CMMC, Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. And if your organization is doing business with that particular department of the federal government, and you are not already on the process of getting CMMC certified, you're behind schedule. Straight up, right now, you are behind schedule, and you need to get to work on that right away. Most organizations that fall into this category, they are going to need to be at a minimum level 2 CMMC certified. Some organizations are going to require level 3 certification, based off of the contracts that they hold. But these certifications, they actually are going to need to be audited by a third-party auditor from an accredited organization that is certified to do these audits. And the organizations that are capable of doing these audits, they are booking up fast if they're not already booked up. And there is a massive time crunch here, because these certifications, the level 2 or level 3, depending on your organization and where you stand with the contracts, the requirement to get this CMMC certification must be met before October 31st, 2026. Okay, so this is why I'm saying if you fall into this category and you're not already working on it, you're behind schedule. And because if you don't meet that particular qualification by October 31st, 2026, your organization, your company will be ineligible for any future contracts with the U.S. federal government, DoD. But now, stepping outside of that, even when we're dealing with U.S. government in general, depending on what industry you're in or wherever you are in the world, regulatory compliance is a massive thing. So, for example, in the European Union, you have GDPR as a massive regulatory compliance for any online activity you do and any information you are capturing for your users. In the United States, if your organization is in the healthcare industry, you of course have HIPAA, and you need to manage patient data based on that regulatory requirement. Does your organization have users across multiple countries? If that's the case, then you need to be aware of data sovereignty laws and regulations for every single country where you have users. So there's a lot going on here with this. And, you know, it's not just government regulations. The other aspect to this, and this happens to do with cybersecurity organizations. Companies are buying cybersecurity policies in the event of a breach. But those policies come with a list of requirements that your organization needs to be in order to be compliant with the policy. And trust me, if you do have a breach, you know, I almost said when because at this point it's almost a matter of when, not if, but when a breach does occur, the insurance company, they are going to go through everything you're doing, all that you need to do to be in compliance with their policy. They will do that with a fine-tooth comb, because if they can find one thing that you are out of policy on, they are not going to cover the costs of that cybersecurity breach. And so that is just simply the situation that you're dealing with. And, you know, that is something where I myself, in my job, I talk to a lot of CISOs, so Chief Information Security Officers, and numerous CISOs out there have actually said that they would rather be compliant than be secure. Sounds shocking. After all, this is Chief Information Security Officer saying they would rather be compliant than be secure, but that's because oftentimes not being compliant might actually be worse than the breach itself. Okay, now, and I get this, the reason why these laws and regulations are being put forward, or the reason why insurance companies are doing this, is the goal is to become more secure. But, you know, and I don't want to get too political on this because that's not what this channel is about, but quite frankly, when we're dealing with insurance company policies, they're written by lawyers, not cybersecurity experts. And when we're talking about governments, Congress, Parliament, whatever country, based off of whatever country you're in, when have they actually legislated on something they actually know about? Okay, so there very well could be the issue of, yes, you do have to meet the regulation, you do have to meet the insurance policy requirements, but in order to truly be secure, you might still have to go above and beyond what is required based off of all of that. And, speaking of being compliant with regulation or policies, you are going to need a solid understanding of the next topic. Skill number 5. Incident response and digital forensics. So I actually have a video I've put out about this, and I'm going to link it up above and in the description below about how to prepare for an incident response situation. Funny enough, it's actually one of my lowest viewed videos. Maybe it's because I tried to tie it to a fun topic, being Star Trek, and we're a lot of us in tech, we're nerds, so myself included, so thought that might be a fun way to talk about it, but maybe the YouTube algorithm didn't like it. But anyways, that's beside the point. I encourage you, go check out that video after watching this one, though. Help drive up that viewership, maybe. Anyways, let's get back onto the topic here. There is no skill more critical than incident response, and then the follow-up to that, digital forensics, in cybersecurity. Okay, because you're dealing with a situation where the breach has happened, the bad guys are in, the enemy is through the gates. What are you going to do? What is your plan? How do you respond? So having a good incident response plan and the actions you take during incident response could be the difference between a successful stopping of the attack and mitigation of the damage versus your organization closes its doors for good. So we obviously don't want that second criteria to happen. So this is why we need to work with organizations that, whatever you're working with here, have an incident response plan in place. Most already do, and that's good. The other thing that most do is that they test them with things called tabletop exercises. And while tabletop exercises are good and better than nothing, in my opinion and through my experience, it actually doesn't really go far enough. So the way I would liken a tabletop exercise is it's like a guided tour of your incident response plan. And in reality, what we really need to be looking at is adding some more elements of role-playing and sort of attack, counterattack type situation here. Because quite frankly, if you're in an actual incident response plan, let's say bad guys are in, they've made it, they've breached your database server, they've got access to the data. What does your incident response plan say? You go through the pages, you find it, you say, okay, well, for a breach of the database server, here's our response. This is what we do. All right. Are the bad guys at that point, when you carry out that mitigation tactic, are they just going to be like, oh no, they got us, we're done here? No, what they're going to do is they're going to actually launch a countermeasure, something to fight back so they can maintain access to your system, maybe even to allow them to perhaps move laterally in your environment, attack something else, compromise something else. So that's their countermeasure. What are you going to do to respond? And so you have to look at it from this standpoint of this attack, counterattack, and response. And the way I put it, and even to tie to my previous video, is really that you need to look at it from the standpoint of the Kobayashi Maru from Star Trek. It's unwinnable. You're not going to win this, but what are you going to do? How do you respond to the situation? How do you respond to the counterattacks? And at the end of carrying out that type of an exercise, what you then need to do is have a sort of a debrief. Okay, what processes were in place that were weak? What tools do we have that maybe they don't cover everything? Maybe there was a gap that we've identified. Okay, it's a lot better for you to discover your vulnerabilities than it is for the bad guy to do it. And speaking of where we might find some vulnerabilities out there, let's move on to the next skill. Skill number 6, cloud infrastructure security. Okay, Cloud is ubiquitous at this point. Just about every organization out there is using cloud infrastructure in some form or another. All right, here we go. You get a cloud. And you get a cloud. And you get a cloud. Everybody gets a cloud. By the way, actually, you should maybe take a look at my video. I'll link it up above and down below on DNS, where I actually go through an example of what happens when cloud infrastructure has a DNS issue and how it takes down a massive chunk of the internet. So again, after watching this, go check out that video. But in a perfect security world, everything is on-prem, because then we've got our nice perimeter that we can set up, and everything is behind that, and it makes things so much easier. But the reality of the situation is organizations like using cloud infrastructure because it creates an ability to spin new services up very quickly with minimal upfront investment, or you can offload some infrastructure from your on-prem environment into a cloud environment, make it easier for remote work, all of these things. But in doing so, it massively expands the security attack surface that you have to defend against. So that's where, when we're talking about cloud infrastructure, you not only have to secure what's on-prem, but you also have to secure the cloud, and you have to secure any connection between them. And by the way, cloud infrastructure and securing that is such a critical component that the Cisco Security CCNP core exam has 15% of its curriculum devoted to cloud security. And it starts from talking about the different cloud models and where the line of demarcation of the responsibilities for securing falls within those models, going on up to implementing application and data security in the cloud and managing cloud logging and cloud monitoring. So if you're working towards a CCNP security or CCIE security, again, cloud's going to become part of that curriculum. And speaking of cloud and enabling organizations to move and adapt quickly, that's going to bring us to our next item. Skill number 7, automation and programmability. Things like Python, Bash, PowerShell. This is something that's been out there for a while now. Okay, so networks and the infrastructure that you're trying to protect as a cybersecurity professional is constantly getting more and more complex, and you really cannot manage it and protect it through manual processes. So this is why it is absolutely critical that you learn automation and programmability skills. And if you're just getting started in this, my recommendation is learn Python. Okay, it's a very easy, straightforward language, and it will help you to learn programming concepts. It's also very forgiving in its implementation. Now, this could lead to some badly written Python that might cause your program to run slower than it should, but at least it will run. As opposed to, say, other languages where you happen to forget to put a semicolon at the end of the line, and when you go to compile it, you get like 500 errors. And yeah, looking at you, C++ and my many university sleepless nights back in the day. Anyways, back onto the topic. After learning Python, though, the other languages I would highly recommend are PowerShell and Bash. Okay, PowerShell is for if you're in a Windows environment, which almost every organization out there uses Windows environments. So yeah, PowerShell is an absolute must if you are going to do any automation regarding Windows. And then Bash, and Bash scripting, which is going to be for Linux, which is going to be found in a lot of servers out there. In fact, probably even the majority of servers at this point, and maybe even for quite a while now, have been running Linux. So the other thing just to keep in mind as a testament to how all of this is important, both the Cisco Security CCNP and the Cisco Cybersecurity CCNP have as part of their curriculums automation and programmability. So it is something that you have to be aware of and know and understand the coding concepts and being able to read the code. And another example of this also plays into AI. Yes, I know it's a frequent topic of this video, but AI, of course, is making it easier for you to write code and write various scripts. But AI is also very capable of writing bad code, which, if implemented, could create an even bigger security vulnerability. And if you're not familiar with what that code is doing and being able to read that code, you could unknowingly introduce that massive security vulnerability. So I'll give you an example of that. One day I was playing around with Microsoft Copilot. And in doing so, I mentioned a CVE, Common Vulnerability and Exposure, which this particular CVE happened to focus on, or is around Windows Server. And I asked Copilot, did it know about this CVE? And Copilot, of course, responded with, yes, I understand it. It allows this to happen. And I said, okay, well, I'm managing some Windows servers, and I need to know if an attack regarding this CVE is happening. So can you tell me what that attack looks like? And Copilot came back. It gave a high-level overview, just sort of the steps and how an attack like that might play out. And one of those steps happened to involve delivering the payload, which would be the malicious code. So I asked Copilot, I said, okay, well, regarding this payload and this malicious code, again, I am managing these servers. I need to know what this looks like. What would that look like? Now, at this point, Copilot kind of freaked out and it backed off. And it was like, whoa, 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 I'm not going to give you the hacker toolkit on this. So just know that this is kind of how things play out in this type of an attack. So I was like, all right, I'm not going to fight it really here. I probably could have given it some prompts that would have let Copilot do that. But instead, I was like, okay, you know what? Let's change gears here. Hey, Copilot, why don't you write me a script in Python that looks for this kind of an attack happening, and if it finds this kind of bad code and this exploit happening as a result of this CVE, it will send an alert to me, the admin, and mainly because I was trying to see if maybe in the code it would provide me if it would actually show something regarding that CVE and how that code might look or operate. The script that Microsoft Copilot wrote, and I kid you not, it literally started, if I had implemented it, it would have crawled through the Windows directory tree and looking for executable files and open and execute every single file that it would have found. You know, to just kind of throw a little reference out there, old pop culture reference, holy ultimate payload script, Batman. It was, as I was reading through the Python script that it was generating, I was like, oh my God, this is just terrible. Nobody in their right mind should ever implement this in their system, in their environment. But if somebody who doesn't understand what that code is doing, they might think, hey, Copilot just wrote me this great script I can use to defend against this CVE, let's deploy it. And if anything happened to be sitting out there latently, well, they would have just payloaded themselves with that. So this is why, even though AI can help you with code, you need to be able to have that skill, understand automation, programmability, and be able to read that code and understand what it's doing and understand those programming concepts yourself. And speaking of AI writing bad code or just bad code in general, let's move on to the next topic. Skill number 8, DevSecOps integration. So the example I just gave in the previous skill about the AI writing bad code, vibe coding is here. It's here to stay. It's not going away. And AI does not generate secure code. So that right there is where DevSecOps is going to become more and more of a need. But at the same time, even if we remove AI from it and you're just dealing with app developers, a lot of them, they are working to meet deadlines, and they see adding security layers into their code as just a roadblock to them being able to meet that deadline. Now, in 2025, we had a record number of CVEs issued at over 48,000 CVEs. CVEs, of course, being common vulnerabilities and exposures. And every year since CVEs have been published, we have had a record number of new CVEs published. So it just keeps going up. And actually, if you look at the past few years, it's even kind of starting to do an exponential curve. But this is really why we need to have DevSecOps and securing code, understanding things like the CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous development model, where testing is done at every stage, and being able to implement security checks into that testing at every stage. That is absolutely key, and it could be the difference between having something that is secure or your organization having to deal with publishing CVEs, and maybe people don't trust your applications because of that issue. So, and speaking of really just as things progress more and more, let's move on to the next topic. Item number 9, quantum resistant cryptography. So we're already pretty far down on the list here, item number 9 out of 10. And the reason why I put this one so far down is I really do view this one as being more of a something to be aware of type knowledge, and just keep in mind or keep up to date or keep current with what's going on here in this space. But the concern around quantum computing is that it would be able to, in the near future perhaps, be able to crack current encryption models. And so therefore new quantum resistant encryption would need to be developed as a means to counter that. The other concern really is that maybe data that has already been stolen and is sitting encrypted or will be stolen, but prior to quantum encryption being able to crack it, that data gets held on to, and perhaps once quantum is able to do so, it cracks it, and then bad guys who have stolen that data have access to it. Now, this wouldn't apply to something that might change often, like, say, change passwords that might be changed regularly. But on the other hand, it could very much apply to something that does not change regularly or at all, such as government-issued ID information or company proprietary secrets. So again, I just recommend that this is something that we just keep in mind and have a look and just be on top of it. And in order to do that, I would recommend taking a look at the post-quantum standards by NIST and the Open Quantum Safe project. Both of those I will link to down below. So now let's take a look at our last skill here, which it's not really a technical skill, but it's still a very important skill. Skill number 10, soft skills, communication, and adaptability. Look, it's not enough that you are good at cybersecurity. You're going to have to be able to communicate with people. You're going to have to be able to work with people, and you need to be the type of person that other people want to work with. So this is actually something that's so big that I also put it in a previous video I did about 10 things I've learned during 10 years of being a CCIE. So I'll go ahead and link to that as well. But well, what I said in that video, it rings absolutely true in that you may get the job through your technical skills, but it's your soft skills that are what are going to be the thing that helps you grow your career. And you just constantly need to work on improving that human-to-human interaction. Yes, I know we want to work with tech. We're introverts, most of us in tech anyways. I'm one. Okay, so I understand that feeling of being an introvert and not wanting to be around people, but it's part of the job, okay? I work on this constantly, okay? So I myself, my particular job that I work in right now, not only do I have to have the technical abilities, but I have to be able to get in front of a room and talk about it and talk to people. And this could be from anything from a conference room to standing up on a stage and giving a presentation or doing a live demo. Which those are always fun because you never expect those to work. But still, I need to know how to be able to effectively communicate. It's part of the job that I'm in. And as I said, it helps you to grow your career, being able to effectively communicate. And by the way, I'm also, throughout my career path, I have been somebody who has managed a technical team. And while managing that team, if I was hiring for a new position, yes, I absolutely wanted to know the technical skills, and I asked technical questions related to what was going on with that particular job role. But I wanted to see something more. I wanted to see effective communication and how well a person could interact and communicate with other people. That was simply part of what I was looking for in a person that I was trying to hire for the position. So if you feel like you need to work on that, a couple of recommendations from me here is, one, find a local Toastmasters and join up. And so you may, depending on the size of your company, there may be a Toastmasters within your company you can join up with. So that's an option, but that would be something to look at. If you want to take smaller steps, maybe you can look up right here on YouTube. You can look up TED Talks on the subject of communication and human interaction. Or there's various YouTube channels out there. One in particular that I particularly like to watch and will follow is Charisma on Command. This is a great channel that it actually interviews or goes over interactions that we see, particularly among celebrities and so, but how adaptation or how particular social situations are handled. It talks about how they're handled poorly, how they're handled well. And so that is a great channel that if you're not familiar with it, I highly encourage you to check it out. But yes, communication. We live in a world where we do need to talk and we need to interact with other people. Okay, so we need that skill. So there you have it, 10 skills or specializations that you're going to need in cybersecurity going into 2026 and probably even beyond. What do you think of the list? Do you agree with those skills, or do you think that maybe there was something that wasn't covered that should be on the list? Go ahead and comment your thoughts down below. And I've mentioned various things that are going to be linked down below, so go ahead and check that out. I'm also going to post some links to learning resources down there. They are going to be affiliate links, so do with that information what you will. But as always, keep learning, keep improving, keep studying, and I will see you in the next video.